Uh-oh, a good guy's in danger of being eaten by fierce lions. Stick around and see what happens.
Hi, kiddo. I'm Grandma Goody, and I'm here to tell you a Bible story. Our story begins long, long ago in the land called Babylon. A new king has just come, and he had to choose new leaders. One name just rose to the top, and that was a man by the name of Daniel. Now, by now, this man Daniel was an old man, and he had lived in Babylon since he was a teenage boy. And now that there's a new king, he heard what a good man and wise man Daniel was. And so when he was appointing all of his leaders, he picked out the top 3 rulers in the whole kingdom, and one of those was Daniel. The other 2 men, they watched Daniel carefully. They looked to find fault. They wanted to find something he didn't do so well, but he did everything to the best of his ability, and so he was very successful. And those other 2 fellas, they were a little jealous, I think. They were trying to find something wrong with his work, but his work was always excellent. And they tried to find something where he cheated a little bit, but Daniel didn't cheat. He was trustworthy and he was good. So they heard tell that the king has decided that he is going to promote Daniel to be above everybody. And so they started to plot and plan, and they had to figure out how they could get rid of Daniel. So they had a meeting, and they put their heads together, and they said, you know, if we're going to get him in trouble, and that's what they wanted to do, it's going to have to be something that has to do with how he worships his God, because he is a Jew, and he worships one God, the God of heaven, and that's different than the rest of us. So if we can find something with his religion that's different, maybe we can get him in trouble that way. So they came up with a very sneaky, and I would say mean, plan. Now, all of the royal leaders who were plotting against Daniel, they got together as a group, and they came before King Darius, and they said, "Oh, King Darius, live forever. We have a suggestion for you. You should make a law that says, for the next 30 days, no one in your whole kingdom should be able to pray to any person or to any god except for you, King Darius. And if anyone breaks that law, they should be thrown into the den of lions." Well, King Darius, he was a little flattered that they thought everybody should just pray to him and not to anybody else. And so he said, well, that sounds like a good idea. Well, they brought him the law in writing. If anyone prays to anyone other than King Darius, that person will be thrown into the lion's den. Well, let me tell you about this lion's den. They didn't keep it to look at them. They used it as a way to punish people and to kill them in a horrible, horrible, scary way, because they had what you call here a lion's den. And if you look here, see, that one's roaring. He's hungry. They're scary. And if you look up here, there's like a little trapdoor with little slots there. And anybody who got sentenced to be thrown into the lion's den, well, they let the lions get real hungry. And I don't know if you ever heard this, but sometimes they eat other creatures, including people, if they get thrown into their feeding pen. And that's what this lion's den was. And so they're in here, and nobody brought them any food, and so they're getting hungry. And so King Darius, he signed that law. And the rule was, once the king signed that law, no one could change it. Not even the king himself. He couldn't take it back and say, oh, like when you're playing a board game and you move and you see it's the wrong move, you go, I take it back, I take it back. Well, they couldn't do that. And so As soon as they had that signature, they figured they had Daniel now. Everybody knew Daniel because he was royal and promoted high up in the government. He had a very nice apartment. And 3 times a day for his whole life, Daniel got down on his knees and he humbled himself before God and he prayed and he also asked God for help. That's how he got a lot of his wisdom. The guys waited for Daniel to go out, and when he did, as soon as he did it, boy, they just swooped in and they arrested him and they carted him in front of the king, and they went to the king and they said, "Oh, King Darius, live forever. You know that law you just signed where nobody could pray to anybody except to you? Well, one of those captives from Judah, we just caught him. He got down on his knees and he's praying to the God of Israel." So King Darius, he realized what he had done and he was so sorry. He wanted to take back, but there were no take backs. He couldn't change his mind. He just tried every way he could. He did not want to lose Daniel. So he said, okay, we must follow the law. And so here's what happened. So these lions, they're sitting there, they're waiting for dinner to come through the trap door at the top. And they didn't care who it was. They were hungry and ready to chomp on him. So Daniel was taken and they walked him along and they just dropped him right in here. And so Daniel's standing there, but imagine that there's Daniel and here's this lion and look how hungry and he's a snarling and a snapping. Anyway, we don't know what Daniel felt like, but he dropped down in there. And as soon as he did, look what happened. The Lord sent an angel and that angel just, look at this. Just shut the mouth of that lion. And that angel was there to protect Daniel. Here, all the lions, I don't know if they came up and sniffed. I don't know if they curled up next to him. I don't know if they even purred him, but this one may have come up and just sniffed his hair, you know. I don't know, see what he smelled like. They couldn't eat him, but they could smell him. Daniel was in there all night long. And I suppose that he went ahead and had his bedtime prayers just like he always did. And meanwhile, King Darius had a troubling night. So next morning, first thing, Darius gets up and he's been praying hard and he hopes Daniel's okay. And he comes right there and he's looking down. See, because he's looking down from above into the lion's den. And he says, "Oh, Daniel, has your God been able to protect you from the lions?" And Daniel said, "Here I am, King Darius. I'm fine." And so Daniel got out of the lion's den. But you know, those lions were very hungry and it wasn't fair to them that they hadn't been fed. And so King Darius, he realized that he had been tricked by the other rulers. And so he took them and he threw them in. And the lions had a big feast that day. King Darius wrote to the people of every nation and every language in the whole world. And he said, "May you have great success. I order people in every part of my kingdom to respect and honor Daniel's God. He is the living God, and he will live forever, and his kingdom will not be destroyed. His rule will never end. He sets people free, and he saves them. He does miraculous signs and wonders. He does them in heaven and on earth, and he has saved Daniel from the power of the lions." And so let me show you where you can find that in your own Bible. You want to look in the Old Testament, and the book is Daniel, named after our friend, and it's chapter 6, and it's verses 1 through 28. And if you're using the secret code, it's DAN 6, verses 1 through 28. And now, you remember, kiddo, Grandma Goody loves you, but God loves you more.